Hey everybody, it's Adrian from Zen's Toys, and I'm here today with a quick project. We're about to head out of town for a long weekend with some of our good friends, something we haven't done since the pre-pandemic times. I challenged myself to make something really quick and fast that could be a fun gift for our friend's daughter. So what I made is this. And what this is there's a wide range of these types of toys, and the way they work is you have a number of tiles that fit into some sort of frame, and each tile has a raised design on it. So what's cool is that you put the tiles in the frame, put some paper on top, close it, and then you rub it with a crayon. And all the raised bits show up. So you do a rubbing, right? And there's a lot of toys like this. There's fashion plates, I think was the first, maybe? It started in like the 70s, I think, in the 80s, 90s. I don't think they've ever actually been out of production because they're such a fun toy. And you can get a wide variety of things. So there's ones that, you know, you can make robots or monsters. There was a really funny one, Van Gogh, that would let you make custom vans. I think that was definitely in the 70s. But anyway, so I made one for jack-o'-lanterns because here we are in October and Halloween is coming soon. So what's really cool about these, though, is that the whole point is for each option, each one of these tiles, you have multiple options. So I've got a few different tops, I've got a bunch of different eyes, a bunch of different mouths, and two different side pieces, well, a variety of side pieces. And the cool thing about that is you can swap out each one of those and you get this sort of like combinatoric explosion of specific vans or fashion designs, or in this case, jack-o'-lanterns. Let's talk about how I made it. So part of the challenge was I started this last night and we're leaving tomorrow, so I wanted to see if I could do something like start to finish really quick. And turns out I could. So this was a little bit of work in FreeCAD. It went together pretty easily. I have a nice little print-in-place hinge here that was not too hard. One thing I'm not so happy about is where these two pieces meet. I've got a butt joint, and that's not really great design. Made it a little harder to glue these two together. But the nice thing is that CA glue and PLA just go together really well, and now that it's all set up, it's very solid. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I started by roughing out the getting some sizes for the tiles, kind of laying that out as a reference in FreeCAD, and then designing everything else around it. So like let me figure out how big the hole for the frame needed to be, and then I added a centimeter on each side to get the frame itself, which gave me the size for the backing, and everything kind of flowed from there. I did add a couple of ridges here, here, and here to kind of just pull the pumpkin together, because I knew I was going to be swapping eyes, mouth, stem, and sides, but I wanted to make sure it still looked like a coherent pumpkin. So that was pretty much it. That went together pretty easily. Then the tiles, for the tiles what I did is I actually used Inkscape for the bulk of the work here. It's mainly Inkscape with a little bit of OpenSCAD. So I started by getting the sizes. So I made sure that the tiles were all square, because one nice thing about them being square is that the eyes can actually be put in any orientation. So instead of just getting one option or two options for the eyes, if they were rectangular, there's 4 options for every eye. So you get slightly different expressions, and really ups that, again, that combinatoric explosion. Similarly for the mouths, I wanted to make sure you could flip them over, so you can have, like, you know, every mouth can be either a smile or a frown. And with the sides, I wanted to make sure that you could put them in on either side. So here I have a side that kind of bulges out towards the bottom, but I can take the same piece and put it over here, and it still matches up. It still matches up, and it kind of bulges out at the top. So lots of good pumpkin-y shapes. First off, I made the tiles in FreeCAD. These were really, really simple, just blanks that were essentially that. A 30 by 30 millimeter square for eyes and the stem, a 60 by 30 for the mouth, and a 25 by 70 for the sides. Once I had that, I exported those out just to serve as blanks. Then I went to Inkscape, and I made a document for each of those sizes. And then I just drew a lot of stuff. So I drew a bunch of different variations. So I looked at some clip art and just drew a bunch of stuff, making sure that each specific option was on a separate layer, which became important in a second. So then once I had that, there were 2 tricks I needed to do to make sure that this would work as I intended. One, I had to make sure that I set the stroke to 1.2 millimeters, but I get the width I wanted. And I also had to make sure that I converted that stroke to an object. So that basically makes instead of having the points be just the spine of the stroke, it actually makes the points the actual shape itself. Once I had that, I was ready to export SVGs and bring them into OpenSCAD. But the one thing that was a little tricky about that is I still haven't found a way in Inkscape itself to export separate layers as individual SVGs. So I found that actually the quickest thing to do is just to, as long as you've got each thing you want as a separate SVG in a separate layer or a separate group, it's pretty easy to just look at the actual source for the SVG. So I actually split things out in VS Code. So I just opened up the actual text of the SVG, and it was a little bit of a hassle, but really pretty quick to just delete out everything but one of the layers and save that as a separate SVG. Once I had that, I was ready to go into OpenSCAD. I built up some helper functions to just take, to make an eye, to make a stem, to make a mouth, or to make a side. And those all just are basically the same thing, except they start with a different base. They offset the drawing by a different amount to center it. And in the case of the eye, I also have a parameter that lets me flip it so I can have mirror images. And that was pretty much it. So basically just bring in the base, linear extrude SVG, union those together, and I got my final tile. So just exported those all out, printed them out, and it's good to go. So that's about it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you want to see more 3D printed toy content, please do like, share, subscribe, or leave a comment. All that helps a lot, and it's really appreciated. I'll have a link down below to the files for this if you'd like to get it for yourself. And here's hoping all of y'all have a wonderful October and a great Halloween. Thanks again for watching. See you next video.